Who are you?
Ellington Robinson, the son of Nadine Robinson and Fletcher Robinson. Born in D.C., raised in D.C. and the Virgin Islands, St. Croix and St. Thomas, and both places have influenced my work and influenced me to a great deal, psychologically, spiritually, physically. I've been doing art all my life. Grew up in a household that was surrounded by a lot of African art. My parents spent time in the Peace Corps, and while they were there, had a huge influence on, got a huge influence of African culture. Collected a lot of African art, so a lot of African art was always in the household. So, you know, the structural forms of it have influenced my artwork a whole lot. And not only that, but the cosmology behind the work, as I've come to understand it, influences the narratives, the sub-narratives that are in the work. Well, I moved to St. Croix when I was 5 years old. We moved to a great house that's called Diamond Ruby. Diamond Ruby was an old sugar plantation. The windmill's still there. They had the slave ruins in the back. And it was built in the 1700s. Living down in St. Croix and looking at other great houses, looking at windmills throughout the island, had a huge influence on my work. Also, growing up in the Caribbean, of course, there's a huge African influence that's there, that's very concentrated with carnival, with the colors, with the people, all those different things. The history of slavery and what it's done to the whole American society psychologically, you know, it has influence on our culture in terms of the music and the rhythms and the way that we walk and the way that we talk, in good ways and a whole lot of negative ways. So being close to the land where the slaves worked, the soil where they lived, you know, those spirits, I felt them then and I still feel them now. And I deal with that in my work. Living in St. Thomas, going to Lutheran Parish, you know, which was Danish architecture, and being all the Danish architecture in St. Thomas and Charlotte Mali, being there and going to the park after school where everybody would come with their uniforms, and that's where you met all the girls. That's where all the music was being played. DJs was set up, guys would bring their boom boxes, reggae, hip hop, calypso, all that was being played. And so all that music going on, you know, with the backdrop of the Danish architecture, just shows the confluence of Europe and Africa and the United States all together.
So how long have you been involved in the world of art in terms of creating your own pieces?
Probably all my life.
What's
all
your
my
first
life.
piece of thing?
I used to create a lot just at home. I built a tree house when I lived in St. Croix. So when I was in St. Thomas at Tilly Gardens, that was my first art show. That was myself and Tiffany Hodge. And we actually won an award for the best watercolorist in that age group. The name of the show was Supreme Magnetic. I got that name because that name was huge back in the late 80s in terms of hip-hop. But what I've done is I appropriated that name in terms of a consciousness that I've kind of come to develop just through my readings and just through my experiences. And one of the things that the work is dealing with is imperialism and just how the world has been divided up and conquered, which is why I deal with maps. You know, so it's dealing with location and migrations. One of the things I looked into was like World War I, World War II, the Berlin Conference, which divided up Africa. Looking at the Caribbean and looking how that was colonized by different countries. Looking at the East Indies also, the way it was done the same. And of course the presence of the Puritans in America and what that did to the Native Americans. So I'm looking at all these different things and how it's affected society. And why still to this day, how you've seen the split up of Sudan recently, you see what's going on in Syria. Part of it is due to you know, the fight over the resources. And so you look at the resources and everything that's on that periodic table, it all goes back to supernovas and the Big Bang. You know, it's that link with us in terms of dealing with us, and we're linked to the universe in so many different ways. With all this going on, why are we bickering over these small little resources? Why are we bickering over the smallest little things that are dividing us as people? Why are we creating these boundaries between us? They're all false. They're all a sense of having power over one another. And I think that if you in tune yourself with what's going on in the universe in terms of the Big Bang, the supernovas, the comets that have been passing us recently, I think you have a broader perspective in terms of being humble and the humility of walking on this planet. This piece is called the Cardinal Points, and this is a sail ship. So being from St. Thomas, of course, we always see sail ships in the harbor, and you pretty much grow up on the water. The whole link of water as a vehicle of navigation, as a vehicle from which life comes from. Also, what makes up the majority of our body, how the world is created, pretty much from hydrogen. It all deals with those different type of things. And the cardinal points, of course, we're dealing with north, east, west, and south. And even the language that we use while we're down there in terms of where you live. I live out west. Where you live, we're going east, north side and stuff like that. They've always been a big part of direction and your, movements throughout the day. But what I've done is also included, like I do with all the materials, include parts of music. Just because imagine, being down there and looking at the landscape and having jazz and hip hop play as the background. And what I've done is I've taken liner sleeves from album covers and I've collaged those into different states or continents, depending on how the map formation is. I've taken the stylus that you use for records, and I've used those as the points. And then of course, like a big old piece of wood that goes back to the ruins that I talked about that we saw in St. Croix, and also that you see in St. Thomas, especially out west by UVI and Santa Maria, where you see all those old homes. Also, what you see here is part of the needle that also has its number on it. That's how people know which needle is used for which stylus. But I use it in a way where it becomes the numbers that you see on sales. Best way to live life is to do something that you love. And if you want to know how to be an artist, you don't need to know how to be an artist. Art starts with you. It starts every day in that bedroom, drawing on your desk. It starts at school. You just do it. You don't need permission to do what it is that you want to do. And you just stick with it. And I think that you become empowered by having fun with it. It's not this laborious thing where somebody has to beat you over the head to do it. A lot of times when that's the case, like people who were forced to play an instrument growing up, and then they're these geniuses at it, but they don't want to do it anymore because it was forced upon them. So my thing for anybody, no matter what economic situation that you're in, what I'm talking about is beyond money. It's beyond class. It's beyond any of those boundaries. You really just have to tap into a force that was given to you, and you just roll with it. And if you're really good at it, things will happen for you.
How does it feel to be an ambassador through your art?
Well, I mean, that's an honor. It's a huge title to have, but it feels great. I just feel like it's a mission. I just feel like it's a mission. It's just a calling. I'm just trying to do really great work and just hope that it touches people and that people would become more conscious and people would just read more about history and just understand the influence and the impact that the Virgin Islands has had on the world in all categories. And I hope that it can create change and for the good, just so that the kids that are coming up now can have a better future, and that St. Thomas can really be a hub in the world without watering down the culture, because you don't have to go to the outside and understand how great that culture is. You just have to immerse yourself in it and understand that it has a whole lot to offer.